All right, everybody. We are back, and we are back with another game with uh, Day Wards here, and they are going to try and hold their title right now against the opposing team, which will be Lance and Shoot Boys. And I'm here with my co-caster, Sana. Sana, we had a great game earlier by Day Wards. What do you look to see coming up for them this game to try and get through to the next stage of the tournament?
Day Ward's actually had an incredible game last time. Shield and Sword really kind of carried their team on that ad carry there with quite a bit of assistance from the rest of her team. Hill of Shovel up top. He, was a really good support up. Well, not really a support. He was the top lane supporting with the Shen, doing a great job of split pushing and consistently keeping want to make some trouble at the time was the people they were playing with last time. Obviously, they're not playing them this time because they beat them.
Mm-hmm.
Just providing great play up there. Momox in the jungle on Cho'Gath just became a tanky, unstoppable monster towards the end of that. So I think that the game that they had last time, they played it very well. I would assume that they were going to do something similar, and we'll see if they continue through with that team comp into this game.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Shield and Sword can just maintain that domination with his AD carry role. So we are entering Champion Select here. So what kind of bans do you think that Day Wards will try and go against? As the Caitlyn ban does go down for.
I was just gonna say, if they were watching the stream, Caitlyn for sure is gonna be the first ban coming out of Lance and Shoot Boys.
Yeah. So
that was called. They probably will ban out a Shen as well, or they will try to pick up that Shen. They do have first pick, so we'll see what they go with here.
Yeah, it does. So that's definitely tells that they were watching the previous game. They do not want to give that champion to Shield and Sword. That pushing power and also that range in the early laning phase just offers such an advantage early on. And as it stands, Nunu is banned from Day Wards, and Draven is banned as well from Lance and Shoot Boys.
Yeah, it looks like they're trying to ban out the Day Ward's ad carry. We'll see if they go for a third ad carry or perhaps they just go for a more general ban. I'm actually surprised to see that Shaco ban. Nuna's banned quite a bit because he's really strong in the jungle right now. That Shaco ban, I'm assuming, is directed at the jungler of Lance and Shoot Boys. So we'll see kind of which team can pull out their team comp and play well during this game.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just as surprised as you are seeing that Shaco ban. Seeing as he has been nerfed a little bit, but the ganks from Shaco are very unpredictable as well with his Deceive. And actually, the final bans just flew out, and Twisted Fate rounds out the last bans for Lance and Shoot Boys, and Thresh is the last ban for Day Wards. And wow, the rapid fire picks here, Sana.
Yeah, we have Xin Chao coming out, first pick for the blue team. Xin Chao is a really strong jungler. His ganks are especially strong in the beginning game because he does have his dash for his gap closer, which can close the gap even after somebody flashes, and then he also has his knock-up and his slow. On the purple team for Day Wards, we have Lulu coming out again, and here comes out Jarvan. He's not picking up the Cho'Gath this time, but the Jarvan has a similar kit except instead of being just simply a knock-up with Cho'Gath, it is now a knock-up and a gap close in addition to his slow that he can use with his shield.
Right, and Revox does get his Lulu again, so it'll be interesting to see whether or not Lance and Shoot Boys can do something about just the pressure that Revox is doing, and just like the laning play by him. And meanwhile, Lance and Shoot Boys are hovering over this Ezreal and Nami pick. The Nami is locked in, so is the Ezreal. I'm a support main, and Nami is probably one of my favorite champions, so I'm really excited to see this pick.
Yeah, that Aqua Prison just has the ability to completely devastate a team depending on who it, gets on. I think that even today in the European LCS, there was a Nami pick. Nami and a Draven just were absolutely dominating and had the ability to take out anybody. Obviously, Ezreal doesn't do as much damage as Draven early on, but Nami and Ezreal can still do quite a bit of damage to a team. However, it looks like there's a Tarek being shown on the purple team for Daywards.
We'll see if they decide to do that, but if they do decide to lock in that tag, oh, he just switches the rank card as I say that. But they are hovering over a plethora of champions right now, namely the mid lane and the jungler, or maybe the jungler or top lane. So they're opting to select Shield and Swords AD carry last, and the timer just runs out, and they lock in Bright Nova with Zed, and Hell of a Shovel's gonna do Zac.
Yeah, now it could be so. Jarvan, Zed, and Zac. I have actually seen them go in the mid, the top lane, and the jungle. I've seen each of them. I've seen Jarvan in the mid, top, and jungle. I've seen Zed in the mid, top, and jungle. I've seen Zac in the mid, top, and jungle. Likely with this team comp, it will be either Jarvan or Zed in the jungle and top, and then Zed will go in the mid lane. But what surprises me more is this is a very heavy ad composition. They don't really have any AP nukes in this game yet.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, aside from Hill of a Shovel Zac, which is just a lot of his skills do have AP, but it's not enough to really consider him an AP champion. But FCuz on Lance and Shoot Boys does lock in that Kale pick, as well as a Pikachu locks in Tryndamere. So it seemed they weren't really thwarted by the fact that Daywards picked three, champions that could go in either of the lanes. So it seems they're steadfast in their strategy right now.
Yeah, and it's a pretty good pickup, and the insta-lock from Shield and Sword going with that Varus pick. Interesting kind of choice, because it doesn't seem like anybody on Lance and Shoot Boys is really, really tanky. And so Varus obviously has the ability to do true damage or percentage damage with his Blight stacks. But I don't know how effective that's going to be against a team that doesn't really, have the ability to stack a lot of health and do well.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, Lance and Shoot Boys does not have a very strong tank, but Xin Zhao does have the potential to be very tanky. But we'll see if he opts to go that, the Aegis and then Locket build to give him that extra CDR to get more audacious charges down, or whether or not he just builds straight tank because that's what the team needs.
Yeah, and both of these team comps look like they picked who they want to play. Ezreal and Nami can be a nightmare in the bottom lane, and Nami does have that sustain that she can give to Ezreal. Ezreal can build quite tanky if he goes blue build, which would thwart a lot of the damage from Daywards here, because Daywards has a very ad-heavy composition here without having that AP mid. They do have a little bit of AP coming out, like you said, from Zac and Lulu, if you can count that, depending on whether or not she builds, full support or a little bit of AP there. Mm-hmm. But just not a lot of AP coming out. And so that blue build Ezreal mixed with, the ultimate from Kale and the ultimate from Tryndamere means that unless they have quite a bit of crowd control, or unless they use their crowd control correctly, they may have a pretty tough time against Lance and Shoot Boys here.
Yeah, absolutely. And the picks are locked in. The teams are loading in right now, so we can talk about the summoner picks. It seems now that the summoner picks are locked in, Momo will be going that Jarvan jungle, and my guess would be Hell of a Shovel will be taking Zac top lane, and Bright Nova will remain in his mid lane with that Zed. So how do you feel about these lane matchups for Lance Shoot Boys?
Well, so Lance Shoot Boys, I think one of the things to note, Kale can be ranged, and Bright Nova doesn't have mana. And so kind of what I mean by that is Kale has the ability to last hit when she's standing away from minions, but only when she uses an ability. So she can't infinitely do that. Whereas Zac has to actually get up to a minion to auto-attack it because he is a melee. But he does have his little shadow, which he can use kind of as a proxy farmer if he wants to use ability to farm minions, but he doesn't have mana to worry about. And so that kind of seems like there are pros and cons there, and that is kind of an even lane. And up in the top, I'm not quite sure. It looks like Hill of Shovel is going to go up top with that Zac and be against a Tryndamere. Now, Tryndamere has quite a bit of passive sustain with his Bloodlust, and Zac has quite a bit of passive sustain with his abilities, costing percent current health and restoring percent maximum health. So that really should just be a farm fest. I do see Tryndamere having a little bit of an advantage as we get past the early game once we hit level 6 or so, simply because Tryndamere has the ability to auto attack, lifesteal, and unless Zach lands all of his crowd control right, it's going to be very difficult to kill that Tryndamere, especially when he pops his Undying Rage.
Right, that's a great point that you point that. It's going to be hard to kill a Pikachu on Trin because in my experience, Trindamirs that go top lane are going to opt to go that split pushing, that just push all day Trindamere. And what I'm worried about for Day Wards is that they don't have much hard CC to pin him down. They only have Lulu's Whimsy and then a knockup from Jarvan and then a Let's Bounce and perhaps the Chains of Corruption by Varus, but aside from that, they're not all going to be up there on Tryndamere, or else they're going to lose the other objectives.
Yeah, the ultimates from Tryndamere and Kale, I think, are going to cause the most problems, assuming that they're used right. Lance and Shoot Boys has the ability, essentially, to have 2 extra people with additional lives. And you can use those ultimates in very different ways. So Kale's ultimate can be used either to stop somebody from dying or to kind of absorb cooldowns. And so a lot of times I've seen people use Kale, they'll run into the middle of the team fight, and as soon as the other team wants to burst their crowd control or high damage ability, she throws that ultimate on, and so it's not used to keep her from dying, but rather just to absorb those high damage cooldowns that people tend to throw out at the beginning of a fight.
Right, yeah, that's a great point. A lot of people think that, Kale's intervention is just mainly used to keep that last hit from killing someone, but really the most effective way to use it is to use it when all those heavy cooldowns, those bursting abilities are being thrown out in that team fight. So yeah, so as it stands right now, we're going to see the team comps here. Lance and Shoot Boys, carry play main is the jungler. He will be playing Xin Zhao. Lead him up will be on Nami. OG Poro on Ezreal, F-Cuz on Kale, and a Pikachu on Tryndamere.
Yeah, and with the blue team we have, the red team, we have Day Wards with Revox on Lulu, Momox 12 on J4, Bright Nova on Zed, Hill of Shovel on Zac up in that top lane, and Shield and Sword in the bottom lane on that Varus.
Right. So yeah, it would just be interesting to see if Day Wards can just continue their domination, their convincing win from last game, and I'm excited to see how Lance and Shoot Boys comes out this game because Tryndamere is just recently been just discovered as this amazing split pushing entity, especially when you combine the static shift and just his overall incredible mobility and as you mentioned before, his Undying Rage just prevents so much kills from being laid onto him.
Yeah, I think in this game that Day Wards will have to create an advantage for themselves beginning game. Because once it hits the mid game, I feel like Lance and Shoot Boys are going to have a small advantage. Ezreal kind of comes into his peak beginning game, mid game. Once the ultimates from Kale and Tryndamere come up, they're going to be pretty much unkillable, at least, without being able to put out significant amount of damage. You're not going to stop them from putting out tons of damage. Nami's ultimate and the Aqua Prison are just going to be, both mid game and beginning game are going to be quite a bit of a pain, but mostly in the late game. Whereas I feel like, Day Wards, they have to take their advantage beginning game when they have a lot of burst and when they have the ability to kill these champions easily. If they don't create a significant enough lead, I feel like it's going to be very difficult for them to come back in the mid game and in the late game.
Yeah, absolutely right about that. So, yeah, they are choosing the, Day Wards are sticking to their standard level 1 and securing their blue buff for their jungler, but just Momo throwing a few Demacian standards to scope out to see if anyone's in that bush. And it seems to me Lance and Shoot Boys are doing the same thing on their side of the base.
Yeah, Lance and Shoot Boys do have a little bit of an advantage because they know that, it's about the same. They know that Jarvan was in that brush right there, but they, in return, they know that Nami was in her respective brush. Now, Nami did throw down a ward, so she will know if they invade, whereas, Day Wards just have to trust that the blue team isn't going to take an unusual invade route.
Right. And
so I'm just going to check to see. Okay, that was an Explorer ward, so it was the ward that didn't cost Nami anything to put down.
Interesting, interesting. So, there are no wards on top lane again, as it shows, and Kale has opted for that Doran's Ring potion start, whereas Zed is going for the more safe rejuve bead and get himself a bunch of pots and then a ward to keep himself from getting ganked by carry play main on Xin Zhao.
Yeah, and so it looks like it's a pretty standard start. Both blue buffs have been picked up by their respective junglers, and they're continuing on to red buff. It looks like carry play main is going straight for his red buff. He might stop at Wraiths. J4 is also, Momo on J4 is also going straight for his red buff. And so it looks like we might have an early gank in the bot and in the top from their respective junglers. It'll be interesting because there are wards in the gank bush. And so bot will know something's going down, whereas there are no wards in the top lane. And so we'll see if that plays an advantage here.
And actually, a Pikachu on Trin just goes aggressive on the Hill of a Shovel there and uses his Ignite, but doesn't take down that Cell Division passive. And Hill of a Shovel was forced to back out, but Momo's going to creep up here with his double buff. And there obviously was no wards yet, so let's see if anything can happen with this gank. And they're just baiting him in, and Momo does show up, and he's just going to stick around, but he finally uses his spinning slash out, but he does get knocked up by Momo. The Ignite goes down, and that will be first blood to Momo, and with the assist going to Hell of a Shovel.
And you can see the passive regen there from Zach. He was practically standing at his tower dead. And he did pop a couple of pots. He did pop 2 pots, but a majority of his sustain is coming from that passive where I don't know if it's his passive, but it's one of his, the cool things about Zach is that whenever he uses an ability, it costs a % of his current health, but it restores a % of his maximum health when he picks up those blobs.
Yeah, and it is part of his passive. He does, he is able to use those blobs to regen, so that is definitely the hallmark of Zach right there. But just great, I wanted to mention great instinctual reactions by Momo to not just throw out that standard Dragon Strike combination too soon. He wanted to wait for a Pikachu to use a spinning slash, so therefore he can just CC him there afterwards, and then Pikachu has nothing to do to escape after that. And he did pop Ghost there, but it was not enough to escape from that gank after the combo.
Yeah, a lot of times you'll see, like you said, Jarvan's coming in and popping that ability a little bit too soon. But he played it smart. He walked in, used his shield to slow, waited for the Dragon Strike to come out, and waited for Tryndamere to kind of dash away, and then use that jump, or use that knock-up ability to stop him from being able to escape.
Yeah, just great patience there by Momo. And he is actually going to creep up on FCuz here. He does get that knock-up as well. Will they go further in? Nope, they will not. They don't want to get too ahead of themselves and take too much turret damage, especially at level 4, pre-6.
Yeah, so they have created about a 900 gold lead for themselves. Obviously, the kill is playing a certain factor in that. But they are, up in the top lane.
Yeah, he is coming by for another gank, it seems.
Yes.
And the Laxic Slingshot goes down, but Pikachu just now realizes that he's back. And another great knockup coming down on Pikachu, and he will surely fall down. He has no summoners, and he will get the kill, Hill of a Shovel this time.
Yeah, and that's really what you have to do against Tryndamere. Tryndamere can't do a whole lot unless he gets really farmed after he's level 6. And so they're shutting him down in this early game, but this is really Tryndamere's weakest time. We'll see if they can keep shutting him down before that level 6, because once that level 6 hits, it's going to be a heck of a lot more difficult to take out a Pikachu up in that top lane.
Yeah, definitely right there. It's just, as you mentioned, yeah, this is the weakest parts of Tryndamere's game, and Dayward's really taking advantage of that with Momo coming up there in less than 6 minutes actually, and getting 2 kills and 1 for his laner as well.
Yeah, but despite that, notice that the farm is about equal up there in that top lane.
Wow.
Tryndamere has 26 farm on, or a Pikachu on Tryndamere has 26 farm. Hill of Shovel has 27 farm. So now, Tryndamere has out-farmed Zach up in that top lane. The kill and the assist obviously giving him a little bit more gold, but a Pikachu is doing a great job just continuing to farm and understanding that, hey, I just need to hit 6 and get some farm and I'll be fine.
Yeah, definitely right there. I actually am pretty amazed that he's able to not only keep up but actually surpass his laning opponent and, pick up all that CS despite dying twice.
Yeah. And in the bot lane, it looks like there's a slight CS lead for Shield and Sword on that Varus, 43 to 49. What really surprises me though is in the mid, Kale is actually using her Righteous Fury, which is what gives her that ranged attack, to do damage to Zed, and Zed is that constant threat there where he can just continue to jump in and deal a bunch of damage, as well as the threat from Jarvan. And it looks like we have something going down.
Harry Main actually forces the flash out of Revax, despite not even using that audacious charge. The mere presence of that Xin Zhao just scared Revax and didn't want to give up that kill or the lead that they have right now.
But it looks like Red Team might be coming down for a counter engage. Kale following that Zac, but it may be the death of her.
Death Mark does go down. The intervention does come down just to dodge that exploding attack, and Momo just comes in, but a great flash from FCuz to keep himself alive despite that daring play by Momo.
Yeah, that was actually a really good flash and ultimate there. The ultimate from Jarvan from Momo is obviously on a lower cooldown than the flash, and so overall that's a good trade for him. He just essentially gives up one cooldown for a higher cooldown.
And actually, Hill of a Shovel does use his Let's Bounce after a Pikachu walks up into his face, but a Pikachu does